When it comes to crisis management, there is almost total agreement that James Burke wrote the book. He was CEO of Johnson & Johnson during the Tylenol poisoning recall of 1982. In October that year, 6 people died in the Chicago area. They'd all taken Tylenol laced with cyanide. The 7th victim was found dead in California. In the midst of the crisis, the FBI and other government officials opposed a wholesale recall, saying it would be an overreaction. But Burke made that call anyway, ordering 31 million bottles of Tylenol off store shelves at an immediate cost of $100 million.
Rating Control Center.
The phone has been ringing off the hook at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center in Chicago. It's the regional poison control center for the entire Chicago area. Poison specialist Lane Olef.
We've been receiving calls about once every 15 seconds. At Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's, we only have 3 poison lines, and they're lit up constantly, ever since yesterday morning.
Right now, they're telling people which lots of Tylenol are known to have contaminated capsules and checking to see if callers have displayed any symptoms of cyanide poisoning.
That was part of a report aired on CNN. But what was truly remarkable about the response from James Burke was his decisiveness, openness and candor. He quickly relaunched the product with tamper-proof packaging.
I discovered Tylenol in the hospital when I had my second child. It worked then and I've used it ever since. Turns out Tylenol is the pain reliever hospitals use most, and that's been so for more than 10 years. Well, if hospitals trust Tylenol, that confirms my own trust.
For relief you can trust Tylenol. Hospitals do. Tylenol, safety sealed for your protection.
And a year later, sales were almost back to where they were before the poisoning occurred. James Burke would go on to be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Fortune magazine named him one of history's 10 greatest CEOs. If ever there was a way to deal with a crisis, that was it. Only it still seems so incredibly rare for a company or a corporation to be open and honest, to admit there's a problem, accept responsibility, and then honestly and earnestly try and fix it. Which is why the actions of Starbucks is so notable. But one day next month, all US stores, about 8,000, will close so staff can focus on racial bias training. And that's on top of the unreserved apology from CEO Kevin Johnson to the 2 African-American men who were arrested for refusing to leave a Starbucks in Philadelphia. They said they were waiting for a friend. The manager said they couldn't stay because they hadn't bought anything. The police came in and they were taken away. Joining us now, Eric Rose, a crisis management expert. He is partner at EKA Public Relations. So, Eric, good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Okay, so there's been a lot of praise for Starbucks for taking this action. It's a big move. It sends a big message. Because at the same time, the company really had to do something because it was in free fall. It was facing a lot of problems. It was taking a beating. And it's also an example of just how quickly companies have to act in this age of social media. You have to move faster than social media.
Starbucks found itself in a lot of hot water, had nothing to do with coffee.
Right.
Unlike the Tylenol incident years ago, which you just profiled, we live in an age of social media. Everything is much quicker. The CEO of Starbucks had to take decisive action. The first steps out of the gate, the first 24 hours, were a little bit of a stumble. They didn't have the greatest statement. The CEO got involved, took over, and did what companies need to do nowadays. He took ownership of the issue. He took responsibility. When many people wanted to blame the manager, he took the blame himself. He apologized without reservations, and he's doing things to make it right.
Pretty big test for a CEO who's been in the job for, what, about a year or so?
Yes. He's been there a short period of time, but clearly he or the people around him have very good instincts. He's putting together a distinguished panel of experts to help the company with racial bias and bias issues, period. And I think that what you're going to see is something come out of this company that other companies can follow. And there are other things that they can do.
Okay, we'll get to that in a sec, but the one-day store closure that they're talking about to train staff will cost Starbucks, I think the estimate I read was around $15 million, maybe a little more. Not a small amount of change, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's nickel and dime compared to what this could have ultimately cost the company, right?
Right. Well, they're not, as I understand it, doing a complete store closure for a day. They're going to be training people for a couple hours. It would be a rounding error for Starbucks, really, if they didn't do the right thing. If they didn't take this action, the hit to their stock and to the company image would be more significant than the cost it is to take these employees and train them.
Okay, there's also the 2 African-American men who were
Yes.
arrested by police. They haven't spoken publicly. They have no plans on giving interviews at this point, but we did hear from their lawyer on Tuesday. This is what he said.
Mr. Johnson apologized on behalf of Starbucks, and the conversation continues today about how this painful incident can become a vehicle for positive social change. We have a situation, and the people at the center of this have come together with civility, common purpose, and a willingness to listen to one another and work towards a solution. Together, we ask that the community respect this process. There will be more to follow.
Okay, so you touched on this. There's a lot of programs and a lot of other stuff associated with this, not just the training.
Right.
Which, if you want to be the pessimist, a lot of opportunity for something to go wrong further along down the line, right?
There is. Here's the reality for any major company and any CEO. We hire from the human race. No matter how well you train someone, no matter what your company values are, people are sometimes going to do the wrong thing. Clearly, the actions of the Starbucks manager were not indicative of the values of Starbucks. And I think that they're taking the actions now to do things right, especially with the panel they're compiling to help put together best practices and training. And I think that if you're Starbucks, you may see a surprise. If I were the CEO, what I would do I would offer whatever the best practices are, whatever comes out of this blue ribbon committee they're putting together, and share it with other companies.
Okay, well, given the success that, James Burke had, 40-something years
Yes.
ago with Tylenol and Johnson & Johnson, the praise that Starbucks has received and the positive press, I guess, after what was a disaster.
Disaster.
The model is there for companies to follow when something has gone wrong. Why don't more companies and corporations follow it? Like Facebook, for instance, Mark Zuckerberg.
People are wondering why Mark Zuckerberg, who lives in the age of social media,
Yes.
who helped create a platform, isn't living by those same standards. It's remarkable
But
how
he's not the only company, to be fair. I mean, the companies have faced these kind of crises all the
we've
time.
talked about
Yeah,
United.
totally.
We've talked about quite a few companies over the last couple of years who have an inability to own up to a situation, to take responsibility, to apologize and really mean it, and then do the right thing.
Very quickly, we're out of time, but is this a turning point? Maybe this is where things change for companies?
Let's hope so.
Okay. Eric, thanks.
Thank you.
Good to
Good
see
to
you.
see you.